Pixar had been in the business of making short films for quite some time and television commercials. And we had an ongoing relationship with Walt Disney through the development of a system for painting their hand-drawn animated films. And between those two activities, our success in our 3D computer animated films that resulted in an Academy Award in 1988 for Tin Toy, and the work we did on CAPS, we started talking with Disney about the possibility of doing a feature-length film in 1990.
We began here at Disney Animation using technology back in Walt's day. Walt invented tons of technology, the multi-plane camera, the Xerox technique to replace ink and paint. Those were all things that were major technological breakthroughs. And we've done our own. Back in The Great Mouse Detective, we used CGI, computer graphics imaging technology, to create the inner workings of Big Ben. We used CGI for the Cars and Oliver and Company. So computer technology has been a part of all of the movies. Everyone talks about the ballroom in Beauty and the Beast. But that is a form of technology. The Tiger's Head in Aladdin, all those things. We've been using that technology to support our storytelling. We've never done anything to the extent of what this is. And yet the technology was not the attraction to it. The attraction to it was John Lasseter's ideas as expressed in his short films.
So after every short film, you know, I would get a call from Disney. Hey, you know, come on down here. I said, no, I'm having too much fun, you know. And after we won the Oscar, they really turned up the heat. And so finally we said, look, let us do a film for you up here. Let us do a film for you up here. And it's like, well, we'll think about it. And then soon after that, we got a call saying, okay, we're ready to talk. You know, come on down. If you have an idea, come on down and pitch it to us. So we came down. We had a 7 a.m. meeting with a whole gang down there. And it was like, 7 a.m. meeting? Oh, my goodness. And so we pitched them the idea for Toy Story, and they loved it.
And that summer, we signed an agreement to make 3 feature-length films with Walt Disney. And then that summer, we also started working on writing the treatment for that film, and then the script, and so on and so forth. In '92, Bonnie came and joined to work with me, and so we could both produce this film together. And that was, what, summer of '92?
Late summer of '92.
Yeah.
It was a small group of people really involved in the film at that point. All I had read, I believe at that time, was a treatment. When I first came, I had seen a proof of concept test that Pixar had done for Disney. And I thought the look was incredible. I thought people were just going to be amazed by it. I'd never seen anything quite like it, and neither had anyone else. But I think a lot of it was looking at a budget, looking at a schedule, looking at what they were trying to do and figuring out how to really accomplish that no one had ever done this process specifically before for this length, for a feature-length type project. Disney had the experience with traditional animation and feature filmmaking. Pixar had a lot of experience doing short films in the 3D computer process.
Well, clearly technology is a big issue to talk about with this movie. On one hand, I'm not remotely interested in the technology of this movie. I'm interested in the characters and what John does.
John, of course, is a former Disney animator, so he comes out of the grand tradition of Disney character animation. And the kinds of stories he likes to tell typically are very much related to the kinds of stories that have been told in other Disney animated films. But what really brings this together with traditional Disney animation is the fact that this film is really about characters and story more than anything else.
So when John first came in and pitched this idea of 2 toys going on this journey outside of a boy's bedroom, it wasn't the same story you see today. The idea was at play, the characters were at play, but it wasn't the story that we're in fact telling with this movie. Our tradition of storytelling is based on working within a situation and working with characters that we find wildly appealing, and then solving their problems as they put them out in the movie. The story we're telling here is very different than a story we've told before.
Typically, a Disney film is fairy tales, retelling of fairy tales. This is a buddy picture. It's very different. And buddy pictures really are proven commodities in Hollywood. You know, there's been 48 Hours, Midnight Run, The Defiant Ones. You know, all these are great pictures. And so we thought this would be great for an animated film, a buddy picture. And we were inspired from Tin Toy with the ideas that we had developed in there of toys being alive, and thought there's a tremendous potential here that we could tap into.
The story we're telling here is very different than a story we've told before. We've never made a buddy movie. We've never made a movie set with with this level of contemporary human-type characters. We haven't done it this way before. So what we're doing with John is something we've never had the license to do before.
What makes us follow the grand tradition of Disney animated films is that this film is driven by characters and story first. And even though it is the first ever computer animated film, the technique that we're using is secondary to the story that we want to tell. And if the story isn't told well, and the reason why finding the solutions to story problems that we had were so crucial, is that the story came first at all times. And that was always the thing that we focused on.
But I think once we had a great story and we knew what the story was, we found the story and solved those problems or those difficulties, everything else fell into place, I have to say, after that. Not to say that it was easy, but it really was smooth because everybody was making the same movie. And I think that's something that everybody that makes films, whether they be live action or animation, all the groups, parties involved want to be making the same picture and or telling the same story. And that's what Pixar and Disney are really good at individually, and I think that's what they brought to the effort together, is they both wanted to tell a really good story, and that's what we have. We have a good story combined with something visually that's going to stun people.
Hi, pal, what you doing?
I'm Tempest from Mars.
Yeah, what's this button? Say, you weren't thinking of flying, were you?
Well,
You know Andy loves toys that can fly.
really? Well then, to infinity and beyond.
You know, Andy loves toys that he can find.
Oh, no, you're eating the car. Don't eat the car, not the car. Oh, you stupid dog.
The software base we've been able to build up over the years that is oriented towards this kind of film, this kind of character kind of work. We could build a lot of power into the models that we build so that the animator could control it in a controllable way. Like if you look at the sculpture of Woody here, and someone else did the sculpture based on some drawings that we had. And then I got the sculpture in and I sort of analyzed it in terms of what I would need. I talked to John and the director and some of the animators and said, okay, well, what emotions does Woody have to have? And unfortunately for me, he had to have every emotion under the sun. Essentially, he's one of the stars. So it was like, okay, well, we got to do a lot of things here. And so I basically, drew the grid on him because I needed to digitize him. If you can catch the grid lines that I marked up on his face, those are points in space that define his face. And we have characters that are even more complicated than this. We tried to keep Woody fairly simple so that he was manageable, but the simplest form of controlling Woody is you deform those points. You move them around. But once you digitize it, you get a sort of fairly neutral pose. I've moved the eyes a little bit. And then I also did the body, built the body out of basic primitives that I could then work with. But carrying through with the face, then I would go in and I'd say, okay, what do I need in terms of facial muscles? First I'd add sort of a neck control, so I could do something. I could swing his head over like this and have him, turn his head side to side. But we built a system that allowed us to build in essentially facial muscles, to sort of represent muscles in a simple form. I mean, it's not the full complexity of the human body by any means, but still facial muscles that could allow him to, lift the side of his mouth, to twinkle his nose, to puff his cheeks out. So I can get the basic shapes running, and then I could, then I'd add a control here to sort of change his jaw so he can open his mouth. And then I might add another control to make him smile. So you build a sort of software that allows that level. And even, you could think of that as being pretty primitive, in some sense, but that's the kind of thing that, 10 years ago we really weren't thinking of building. It was more, we're just trying to get anything up on the screen, and we've come a long way, and the whole industry has come a long way in those 10 years, 10, 15 years.
Sergeant, establish a recon post downstairs. Code red. Sergeant, establish a recon post downstairs. Code red. Sergeant, establish a recon post downstairs. Code red. Sergeant, establish a recon post downstairs. Code red.
The trick is to try to capture as much information as I can, get all the details, say, around the mouth, around the lips, around the eyes, all the expressive areas, without having so much detail in there that I get wrinkles. I want to keep the surface smooth, particularly on Buzz, who's supposed to have a very smooth face. So the idea is to try to make a balance between those, and also to make any surface features that, say, intersect the face intersect as smoothly and as naturally as possible. So I've got to balance several things. Each one of those white dots on his surface is one of those points that you saw me digitizing a moment ago. And from that we've constructed all the surfaces. I can get rid of most of the other stuff, and we can see a rough approximation of what he'll look like when he's rendered in the film. After this, I'll add, all the color and all that other stuff to it. But this is pretty much all of the geometry, all the shape information that he'll have in him.
Basically, I get a model packet from the art department, like this one here, for the Buzz box. And once it's approved and everything, I get it and I build it. So I'll just start from scratch, and I might scan in one of his drawings just for shape reference or size or various sort of things, and use it as a template, and I'll start building curves and surfaces and shapes in 3D and start building, in this case, a box. I sculpt it, put it together until we get the right shape and it's approved. Then I'll pass this model on to another piece of software where I'll add animation variables for controlling, in this case, flaps and other things on this model. And after that's approved, the model is basically finished, and I'll pass it on to whoever adds the shading and texture maps, which the art department has designed to be placed on this thing. And then we have a final sort of a rendered version of this box, and it's approved, and then it goes on to layout and lighting.
My ship!
will take weeks to repair.
We've taken a sculpture of the dog, which was made for the purposes of capturing the shape, and we sample points along the surface of the dog, and from those sample points we fit a mathematical surface that we can then animate, add the surface descriptions that make the rest of the film happen. There's a lot of planning. I spent about a week planning out where I should sample him. And then from that I spend maybe 2 or 3 days digitizing each major part of his body. 2 days on the body and probably 3 or 4 on the head. And then several days kind of taking all that data and fitting it together with the program I have here so that all the parts of the body blend smoothly and it doesn't look like he has any holes or gaps in him.
So what do you have to do? He hasn't been final yet. Scud
hasn't?
So this is his final moment.
Oh, wow.
Well, let's see. I mean, to be honest, there isn't a whole lot that's done except kind of tweaking the animation controls. Peanut wanted to know whether you really wanted the jaw to hinge way back there, and I told him you did. I told him, yes, you wanted that, you liked that. I liked it. He better like it.
Did you see the run cycle?
No, I haven't shown him the run cycle.
Yeah, see, this is the thing. We're looking at the MyBridge stuff, you know, and looking at the real extension. See how, when you compare how thin it kind of gets in here. Because he looks like a puppy almost, you know. Look at the tail, though. The tail works great.
Yeah, happy Scud.
Scud's never happy.
What in the world? Oh, I thought I told him to pick these up.
Okay, so this is the scene where Woody calls the army men together to go spy on what the birthday presents are downstairs.
Ooh.
All the toys are worried, so Woody goes over to the Sarge and says, "Sergeant, establish a recon post downstairs. Code red. You know what to do." Sergeant says, "Yes, sir." He hops off and he goes down by the bucket of soldiers. He goes, "You heard him. Code red. Repeat, we are at code red. Recon plan, Charlie, execute. Let's move, 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 move." And all the soldiers start jumping out of the bucket and they start marching. The other toys are watching them. And then we cut to the hallway. All is quiet. And then the door opens and one little soldier appears down by the banister. Or what do you call it? Down by the molding. And he motions down by the baseboard. And a little soldier runs across. He hops over, sees that the coast is clear, and signals. And then the troops start moving out. And they're carrying a baby monitor. And they got a coil of jump rope. And they come down the hall. And then they're over by the stairs. And they start coming out and hiding behind the columns. And Sarge holds back behind the one column. And he looks down. And all the kids are downstairs. And Mom's saying, "All right, kids, it's ready to open the presents. I'm going to go get the cake and ice cream." And they go, "Okay, Mom." And all the kids run away. And the coast is clear. And Sarge looks down, sees that there's nobody there, and then he turns over and he gives the silent hand signal. 1, 2, to two of these soldiers. We zip pan over, and 2 paratroopers jump down, and foof, foof, their parachutes open up, and they come gliding through the scene down to the floor on the first story below. They pull out their guns just to, make sure the coast is clear and everything's safe. So they look up and they start signaling for the rest of the guys to follow. And the jump rope comes down. The guys on the bottom, I already got their parachutes put away because they're so fast. And they, And then they start speed rappelling. These guys are like a Cracker Jack Special Forces unit. They speed rappel down into the circle of safety down at the bottom of the net. And then we cut back up to the room. And then all the toys start running over to Woody. And Woody pulls out this baby monitor and he sets it up onto the bedside stand and clicks it on and says, "Now this is how we're going to find out what's in those presents." And all the toys start crowding around. Meanwhile, the army guys are downstairs walking by the kitchen door, and they're marching, and then they hear some footsteps coming. And Sarge turns around, gives them the silent hand signal to freeze. And they go into their classic army man positions. The bazooka man down on one end, the mortar guy, the minesweeper. Everyone's just frozen. Yeah! Everyone's frozen in their army man positions. And then the door opens up, and Mom comes out, and oh! The minesweeper gets crushed. So then she goes, "Oh, I thought I told him to put these away." She thinks that Andy just left some of his toys out. She uses her foot to kind of kick them over, and they slam up against the wall. Mom continues walking past, and Woody's up there with the toys, and Rex is getting worried. "What's taking them so long?" And Woody says, "Come on, these guys are professionals. They're the best. They're not lying down on the job." And then we cut down to them all lying down on, they're all lying around. Sarge looks up, and he gets to his feet and signals for them, all done with silent hand signals. "Get up." And they start moving. Sarge shows them where to go, and they start moving towards the planter. And then he calls up to the other guys to send down the baby monitor, and he looks over, and the minesweeper guy's wounded. He says, Sarge, go on without me." And he picks him up, and he goes, "A good soldier never leaves a man behind." And he starts dragging him out, and sending all the other guys off. The rest of the squads bringing the baby monitor down. These guys are lowering it down. They jump off, unwind the jump rope from the baby monitor. They rush it over to the plant. They get it up into the house plant. He's dragging, Sarge is dragging the wounded minesweeper guy. When kids are coming, a ball starts bouncing towards them. "Oh no, the pressure's on." They're like, the other guys are up in the plant saying, motion them for him to come on. And then finally, at the last second, they haul the wounded guy up into the plant, and the kids go running by. And then we pan through like this jungle terrain, but it's within a house plant. And they set up the baby monitor, and they click it on, and we pan down to the medic. And he's taking care of the wounded guy. He knows it's okay. He gives the thumbs up signal, and we pan over to this like moss kind of stuff, and up comes Sarge, and he goes, there they are. He gets his binoculars, and we see all the presents right there. Where they're going to watch
Very
it
good
open.
job.
Yeah!